Hi, everyone. Okay, so this is part two of the complaint that I made to the Manitoba College of Social Workers in regards to Ian Scarth and Jessica Hershey. This is the document that I received from the Manitoba College of Social Workers panel through Ian Scarth. Now, we're not going to go through all of it tonight simply because I'm really, really tired. But I did want to touch on it, and we'll go through it more at a later date. Um, but there is a couple things that I want to touch on. And I'm just going to scroll through this very slowly. So these are on page three of the document. I think it's three. Um, it talks about the charges that the Manitoba College of Social Workers. Sorry, two. Page two. It talks about the charges that they have charged me with. And then on page six, it gives the decision. So we're just going to scroll through that. Sorry, I went too fast probably. You guys can pause this and read it if you want. But point nine on page six, it reads, after hearing the evidence and considering the written submissions by the Manitoba College of Social Workers, including authorities included therewithin, the panel finds as follows. The Manitoba College, point eight, that Manitoba College of Social Workers has failed to prove, on a balance of probabilities, that the member committed charges 1, 4, and 5. Point B, the Manitoba College of Social Workers has proven on a balance of probabilities charges 2 and 3 in that the member breached section 7.18 of the Code of Ethics. Now we're going to talk about that for a moment. So 7.1.8 of the Manitoba College of Social Workers Code of Ethics states social workers distinguish between actions and statements made as a private citizen and actions and statements made as a social worker, recognizing that social workers are obligated to ensure that no outside interests bring the profession into disrepute. Now, this whole complaint centers, or this whole thing centers around an uh, a time when my daughter was in hospital in a coma, and I was trying to deal with medical staff. Now, um, in this document, you'll notice that there is not one reference to an employer, a client, or a work colleague. It's all to do with my personal life. Now, when somebody is going to the doctors to deal with their child or going to daycare, before they open up their mouth, you never hear anybody say, "Just to let you know, I'm working," or "Just to let you know, I'm speaking as a private citizen and not a professional at this point." No, they because that's just not natural conversation. When you're talking to somebody, when you're dropping your kids off at daycare, you talk to the daycare people, you know, maybe say how the child's morning went, um, anything that the daycare people need to be aware of, whatever. When you talk to a doctor walks into that examination room. Usually the conversations like, you know, exchange of pleasantries like, hi, how are you today? Parents like, oh, I'm good, but my daughter has a sore throat. That's just normal, right? Not that the kid having a sore throat is normal, but like the progression of the conversation. You don't hear things like doctor walking into the examination room and doctor being like, "Hi, how are you doing today?" Oh, sorry, Dr. So and so, before we talk, I need to specify that I'm talking as a private citizen and not a professional at this point in time. So now that I've established that, can we now continue? Who does that? Who says that? When people are working, when people are um when people are dealing with their own family members, it is just assumed that people know that it is of a personal nature, that you are acting as a private citizen. Not to assume that, I'm sorry, but whoever does not assume that somebody is acting in a personal matter while dealing with their own children does not have common sense. And I'm sorry, but that is just the cold hard reality of it. Because if you're doing something with your own children, that is personal. That is extremely personal. And you're obviously acting as a private citizen at that point in time. Um, but on top of that, let's talk about probabilities. Now, a probability is essentially a chance, something that could go either way, right? For example, right now in the area of Canada that I'm in, it's minus 37 with the windshield, which is really, really cold. Um, but Environment Canada says that it's going to get warmer going into the weekend, which is great. It means tomorrow there's a chance it could get warmer. But there's also a chance that it could remain similar to what it is right now. That is, those are two very real probabilities right now. And they're two very real proven probabilities. We've got Environmental Canada saying one thing, and we've got what it I'm experiencing right now in this moment, and what the weather report is actually reporting in this very moment, right? So there's a probability it could stay the same. There's also a probability it could get warmer. That is the problem with probabilities. Probabilities are not proven. It's not proven until it actually happens. Section 11 of the Canadian Constitution says to be presumed innocent until proven guilty, according to law, in a fair and public hearing by an independent and impartial tribunal. It does not say that someone is to be found guilty on the basis of a probability. It says to be presumed innocent until proven guilty. For the college to prove that I'm guilty of 7.1.8, they would have had to do a poll before and after, a poll for a control group before, and a poll after with um some sort of poll before and after of a public opinion, right? Because they're saying that I brought the profession into disrepute. Well, they don't know that. The Bringing the profession into disrepute is basically saying that um I brought the profession into a negative light with the public, essentially. Well, they don't know that because they don't know how the public is reacting to these videos, right? Um, and they would need to before poll for a control group and a polar survey afterwards to find out, what the actual effect is, right? Um, and all that hasn't happened. All that has happened is that these three people on the panel decided what could or may not be the view of the entire Manitoba public. Now, uh, three people out of thousands is not a good indication of what the general public is thinking. There's more to be said on this, and we'll talk more about it later on, but there's only one more thing I want to mention. So, when we're talking about charging somebody on the basis of probabilities, and keep in mind that anytime a legal decision is made, they set a precedence for things in the future. Now, imagine this: you're you've been um, you've been selected to be the designated driver for a Christmas party, or you volunteered for Operation Red Nose, and the cops pull you over, and you haven't had a drop to drink all night, but you're being charged for intoxicated driving based on a probability that you have been, because you've got people who have consumed alcohol in your vehicle. How fair is that? Now, that realistically probably would never happen. Why? Because there's breathalyzers. Because there is an onus on whoever is making the charges to prove guilt. That has not happened in this case. If if the cops in that instance did not have the breathalyzer, or or a person refused, if a person refused, fine. But even then, they can't really charge them with anything because it isn't proven, right? They could charge them with refusing the breathalyzer, but they couldn't actually charge them with intoxication until they could prove that that intoxication actually happened. Um, but like, once you start charging people on probabilities, where does it end? You know, say for example a murder. If if a murder happened and the police had four suspects, would all four suspects be charged with the murder based on probabilities? And it's the same with anything. Where does it end? Like, the Canadian Constitution states to be presumed innocent until proven guilt. Sorry, to be proven guilty according to the laws in a fair and public hearing by an independent and impartial tribunal. I mean, it's right there in the Constitution. And also in the Constitution, Part 52(1), we went over this last time, it states the Constitution of Canada is the supreme law of Canada, and any law that is inconsistent with the provisions of the Constitution is, to the extent of inconsistency, of no force or effect. So I'll leave you guys with that for tonight. There are some other things that I want to talk about. Um, but I'm at this point I'm gonna give the Manitoba College of Social Workers a chance to reply and see if all the charges are being dropped, or what's going on with that. Um, it is interesting. Like, Jessica Hershey submitted um, a document with costs and stuff, and we'll go over that more later and talk about how. Um, but no, I'll wait until they come back with a reply, because um, I want to talk about uh, how it could be viewed, and we'll wait for another night for that. Um, oh, I was going to talk about this document a little bit more too, just to emphasize on how, no, we'll do it another night. All right, you guys have a good night, and huh, my computer's acting weird. All right, you guys have a good night.